Just 4 years into his coaching career at the Hawks, Alastair Clarkson was lifting the Premiership Cup, and so began a dynasty. 2026 will be Clarko's 4th season as coach of the Kangaroos, and the fans are getting restless. Now is the time for North Melbourne to begin the climb up the ladder. Let's see how his side is placed heading into another year. A new season in 2026, Clarko, and I wonder how it finds you. Mind, body and soul fresh and rearing to go?
Can we start really good, please?
I'm trying to get you up on a high, mate.
Mate, I admire your intellect, but you're not a poet.
We're going to use some of this, and we're going to edit it. So how are you, mate?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. And rearing to go for the season.
All right. Now, we need to... Let's put this into context. At face value, getting North Melbourne back into finals contention looks just about the toughest job in the business. So the club's had 5 consecutive years in the bottom 2 and then a bottom 3 finish last year. You're coming into your 4th season. There's a few early draft picks under the belt. When does the spike come for North?
Well, no one ever knows, but all I do know is that when you can marry up the personnel that you've got with the methodology, and then you're just waiting for that to just meld together nicely. When it does, then that's when the spike will come. And we've seen that with so many clubs over the last 20 years, in particular in this draft era and this free agency era, where you've got opportunity to rebuild your lists and go about trying to put together a group that can chase the silverware.
Yeah.
And there's no easy, quick silver bullet that takes you there, but we feel like we're making progress in that space. And I think the exciting part for me is just the emergence of some of these guys. You see them a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, a little bit quicker, making better decisions with the football. And all I do know is that they're growing as a group, and we're starting to get closer to that spike now. I'm hoping that comes sooner rather than later.
You started back in 2005. So how has the challenge of coaching in that time changed?
Well, it hasn't really changed because you've got 17 other teams that you're competing against, and in my view, it's the most difficult game in the world to play. So needless to say, it's pretty difficult to coach too. So that is the enormous challenge of it, to try to work out a strategy as a football club, no matter where you are on the ladder, to genuinely get yourself back into contention with silverware. And sometimes you need to go backwards to do that. Sometimes you can just catapult yourself just straight up there from where you are. And as a football club, we're in the position where we needed to really build from the bottom up. And unfortunately for us, that means just going to the draft. And it's very, very difficult to attract free agents and trade targets when you're sitting in the bottom 4 of the ladder. No, we thought that free agency was going to work really, really well to give it access to all players, but free agents only go to the top 5 or 6 clubs on average. So we just got to work it and go about it a little bit different way than what we did 20 years ago.
As a coach accustomed to great success, explain to me the frustrations that face you personally as coach of North Melbourne.
Well, the frustration is that you want to get there quicker. Everyone wants to get there. Supporters want to get there quicker. I think even the general public now wants to see North Melbourne get into a position where they can actually compete in games on a regular basis and then get themselves back into the finals. It just takes a period of time. I understand that. I've been in the game for a long period of time, and just understand there's a process to it. There's a process to it in terms of your methodology, and there's a process to it in terms of getting the personnel that you think that can carry you there. And the good part about it for mine is I feel like the bulk of the personnel are there now, and it's just really marrying that up with the methodology that we want to use, and then getting the belief and confidence that this can actually carry us into finals, and then ultimately winning silverware.
A change in the leadership on field. How has Jai Simkin reinvested in the cause after looking to head elsewhere in the off-season?
Yeah, well, Jai had, I think, gone on record as saying he had some challenges. A couple of those were on field, but most of it was off field. And so we all go through challenges in our life, and those challenges weren't going to be there forever in a day. Yep. But sometimes when you're battling a little crisis like that, you just think, change might be as good as a holiday. He explored it. I knew full well that some of these challenges he was having to confront were going to dissipate at some point in time, and he wasn't going to be wearing any other colours except blue and white stripes.
We love the way Nick Larkey plays his footy. He looks a happy sort of bloke. What sort of skipper do you expect him to become, given what you've seen so far?
Well, I think he's pretty passionate about the footy club. He was drafted as a late pick and took a while to emerge, as the big fellas usually do. But He's such a highly respected figure around the football club, and I think he's at that point in his career too where he's been in the footy club the best part of a decade now, and he wants to put a stamp on the club in terms of being the one that helps lead this club out of the doldrums and get ourselves back to playing finals footy and then eventually silverware.
George Wardlaw, no doubt one of the genuine fan favourites, but he's been plagued by injuries in the early part of his career. I think a hamstring's the latest injury, unfortunately, that he's copped of late. Is there anything you can do as a coach to ease the physical toll on this young man, or is it just the way he plays the football?
Well, I was hoping that I could go to the AFL and say, could we just play our game in a phone box? Because if it was in a phone box, George would be the Brownlow medalist every year. Like, he's a ripper. He's a great character and an enormous competitor. That's just finding it difficult to get his body. But to be fair, his last 12 months have been, outside of a couple of concussions, been terrifically durable. We're just hoping that he gets a decent run at it. But that's the challenges of the game. You see a young fellow like Jackson Archer, who we've got high hopes for, but just tweaks a knee at training that we think is innocuous, and he's out for 12 months with an ACL. So it's just really, really unfortunate. But at some point in time, my genuine belief is the life in the game is cruel if it takes away your whole career. At some point in time, these guys are going to get a run at it.
You need playmakers in the game. Paul Curtis is one of those. Now, he's had a significant setback in the off-season. Where's he at, and where do you think he can get to as a player?
I think he's all-Australian capability, and he was certainly on track for that this year until he had a suspension mid-year that knocked around his season a little bit. But he's a high-calibre player that, he had a bit of a hiccup, went overseas and got an infection in his lungs and required surgery for that. It was quite serious, but his response to that and his training has been first class. He'll be there round one, barring a hiccup. And we've got high hopes, but it's that crew of guys that have been around the footy club. I know that a lot of the talk around North Melbourne will be around the draftees, and certainly would hope that the McKirches and the O'Sullivans and Sheezels and Warthaws and these sorts of guys, young Davison, who we've just drafted, become really, really good players for our footy club. But it's the Tom Powers and the Paul Kerrs, the Charlie Combins. Unfortunately for Jackson Archer, he's in that bracket too. And he won't be there for 12 months, but those guys really emerging as key players for us is really important for the development of our side.
Let me ask you about Harry Sheezel. He's one of the young stars of the game. You've coached a few stars over the journey of your coaching career. When we look back in another 10 or 12 years, what will we say, do you think, about Harry Sheezel's career?
Yeah, well, hopefully he's part of a wave of young fellas that carry this club back into finals, and despite his first years being in a side that's in the bottom four, by the end of his career, because I think he's going to be, barring injury, a 14 or 15-year player. I'm hoping that for a good decade or more, he's going to be part of successful sides. So you won't remember Harry Sheezel as being part of sides that have been in the lower part of the ladder, that he'll be part of sides that have been successful and chasing silverware. And if he's part of those sides, then you're thinking all sorts of individual accolades there along the way too. He's such a humble kid and such a professional that, he deserves success just with the way he goes about it.
20 years ago, you took over as coach of Hawthorn and you revolutionised the game and the way it was being played. Is there some magic left in the kit bag? Has the old dog still got something up his sleeve that he's going to spring on us?
Well, the challenge of the game is it continues to evolve, and that's the beauty of it. I don't really think we need to change the rules to the game to continue to try to allow our game to evolve, because the coaches will work out a way, and if they don't, the players will. And I think we've seen that shift in the last 10 years. For the last probably 5 years, really. The game was dominated by defence, for a fair period of time for 10 years, and it just seems to me that the needle switched where the game's a lot more offensive, and that's been driven maybe a little bit by rule changes, but mainly by coaches saying we've got to find a way to try to break through defence. So trying to stay at the forefront of that is really, really difficult, particularly when really our significant focus has been around just getting the personnel right for our footy club. Then we can start welding it nicely with the methodology, and on the way there. But the game continues to evolve, and you've got to try and stay abreast of it as best you can. You mentioned rule changes. Let's talk about a few of those. The last disposal rule between the arcs. Yeah, well, all these rule changes, we've had the umpires coming down and umpiring, our match simulations at various stages since Christmas, and we haven't noticed a significant adjustment to the way that we normally play the game. So yeah, the last touch out of bounds, it might happen, 3, 4, 5 times a game, and you hardly ever notice it, to be fair. But some of those will have implications. The centre bounce, not the ruckman being unable to walk across the line, that'll have a little bit of an impact. But I don't think too significant.
What about no ruck nominations? And they're not going to wait for the ruckman to get to the contest. So that's going to require players to think on their feet, and you can still only have one go up.
Yeah, well, this has happened before. Probably about 20 years ago in 2008, they changed rules about round 20 by putting 4 boundary umpires around rather than just 2, so they could throw it in quicker. So I think Shane Crawford in that year had his first ever hit out in a game. Just so happened that he was the only one standing there. So I think it's good for the game. Anything that speeds it up and we take away the dead time out of the game. So if the rucks aren't there, just ball it in, and whoever happens to be there to compete, then let them compete.
I think all the rules are designed to keep it ticking along, aren't they? The stand rule's another one. They're going to police that more heavily. You're not going to be able to pick and choose whether to go back. You've just got to stand. Are we going to see a flood of 50s in the first couple of rounds while players get used to it?
Yeah, more than likely. That'll be the case. But the players will then adapt. The shame of it for mine is the umpires who are having to adjudicate just so many things. It's a difficult enough game to umpire in the first instance alone. Having these guys worry, and I just don't like the look of guys standing on the mark like this. It just looks like an awkward part of our game. It's not a great spectacle for mine. I just think that we could find a better way, because I think that they should. For instance, allow the guy who's kicking the ball just a little bit more leeway in his protected area, because as soon as he takes a step off the line, it's play on as well. It's just like, give him a little bit of leeway and allow the bloke on the mark a little bit of leeway, and then the umpires don't have to be so officious in terms of trying to monitor things that, guess what, there's probably 20 times a game where you could get penalised and you don't, and then they'll pick you up on one that perhaps wasn't even there.
You mentioned before coaches help evolve the game. You would have been looking at all these rule changes or rule interpretation alterations. How can you exploit them? How can you use them to your advantage?
Well, I think every coach in the competition is just waiting. I think the first 4 weeks of the season, everyone's going to be watching, including what's going to happen with the interchange now that it's gone to you haven't got the sub. So how's each side going to use that? Is someone going to come up with an innovative approach to that? Is it going to be around a second ruck that you can use off in that position, or is it going to be an extra forward that you play, an extra midfielder? So all these different things are going to be looked at by the coaches and the players, and then try to find some sort of niche within it that, once again, suits your personnel and suits your method, because sometimes, no matter every side in the competition is really wanting to copy what Brisbane's doing at the minute, because it's winning them silverware. But ultimately, if your personnel or your method and philosophy doesn't match that, then you're going to probably pull up as bridesmaids.
How do you expect the wildcard weekend to play out?
We're pretty excited with it, because it gives a greater chance of being able to get in there and play some finals footy. But I'm excited by anything, any innovation like that can allow supporters to celebrate their teams, and so I don't mind the concept of it.
You mentioned Fags and the Brisbane Lions. How does the competition stop them winning 3 in a row?
Yeah, well, it's tough, because they've got the fortune of being able to recruit their talent in another additional way by having the academies. There's 4 sides in the competition that get the benefit of doing that. And right at the present time, with the way that they've constructed their lists, it's looking like Brisbane and Gold Coast are getting enormous benefit out of that. But that's the competition. You just play with the rules that you're given, and it's going to be particularly hard, particularly when you look at their grand final side. You look at how many of their players are in that 18 to 22 years of age bracket. But I can remember when Collingwood won the flag in 2000, and just thinking to myself, geez, they're going to be right up there to win the flag for each of the next 5 years, and they don't win another one in that period of time. So strange things can happen in the game, but they've won 2, and they're going to be really, really difficult to stop again with their personnel. But strange things happen in footy. Final one, mate. Mind, body and soul, raring to go, fresh, ready? Raring to go, and excited for the season, and excited to see the emergence of some of these young Kangaroo players, and hopefully we start that spike this year. Have a great one, mate. Good evening, man. Good stuff. Thanks, mate.